How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel for another quant update. Disclaimer, I do not hold this coin, but always going to be requested to do updates on this, and once in a while I will if there's any development, which there is. Came down into my second target. Now I actually had this target all the way back up here at 112. As we started to come down, I was saying that's the high that we're unfortunately not going to break. This is the level that I need to see broken. Then we'll get a further move up into 155, but I'll only personally flip bullish if 155 is flipped into support. So that move up there, tradable, but doesn't mean we're macro bullish. Just pumps into resistance and maybe gets rejected. It didn't even manage to push through 112, and then my first target, 786 fib, $69 was met. I actually made a video down here saying we would only pump into here and continue lower. As it developed and I saw a move up on Bitcoin, I got tricked and I made a following update saying no, I think we're actually going to pump up higher into the 200 EMA. This did not actually happen. The previous support was flipped into resistance, showing you what the trend is. Now, yes, down here I made a video saying it should only test there as resistance to continue lower. Something threw me off and made me more bullish than I should have been, which is funny because Bitcoin's still under its macro 886. I think that level is 105k for Bitcoin. But anyway, must have been a micro fib that gave me that confidence, and I was wrong. So never got that retest. Anyways, guys, had it got up into there, would have just been the same pattern as you see previous. The moving averages would have held. We would have got that new lower low anyways into the next target. But it didn't even manage to recover $81, $85, unfortunately. And it went down and went ahead and met my final target, or the second target, however you want to call it. Reason why I was saying final is because if you want quant to be bullish, it better be the final bearish target. It's the last Fibonacci golden pocket level, the 886 as part of the golden ratio. And if you want to avoid these bearish targets, then that has to hold. This is where the reversal has to come from. So if you don't believe me, we can actually look at some other charts that show the reverse, so the opposite way around, where you can see the 886 held, so you don't get those targets, right? Go back to quant. You want that to hold so you don't get those targets, because if you lose the 886, you're going to see those targets. So I just showed you on the reverse. Maybe if I turn it upside down, it might be easier to show. Let me go once again and show you. So look, you had this move up. Then we start going into this correction mode. If the correction did not find support on the 72k level, the 886 fib, we would have seen these bearish targets. But you avoid these bearish targets by maintaining that final level of support, part of the golden ratio. And with that, look what happens. You break the high, so we place the opposite fib, wait for the 886 to break, and then you hit those targets. Look, eventually got up to the 2 fib area. So reverse that, head back to quant. If you're bearish on quant, then that needs to be lost and you'll see these targets. If you're bullish on quant, wow, there's a lot of levels that need recovering. And that's what I've been saying. It's very high up, whether you want to hear it or not. Maybe it's because I'm not actually holding, I don't have that attachment to it, but this is my viewpoint on all crypto, not just quant. So, and it's the same with Bitcoin. The only reason why I'll be fine with buying Bitcoin is because long term it will always go up against dollar. Alts will go up against dollar long term, but not against Bitcoin. They trend towards zero against Bitcoin long term. Now in those altcoin season moments, yeah, you're gonna get that short term period. You can gain more Bitcoin by holding alts, but long term that is not the case. You'd only lose and lose and lose and lose. And that's quite obvious with the years passing, and many years ago, quant was $76, but many years ago, Bitcoin was not 95k. So we see long term what outperforms, and it's crazy and wild to think that the number one coin you come into crypto, you're thinking, oh, Bitcoin is too high, I don't want to touch it. There's a reason why it's number one and stays number one. Nothing has toppled it. Yes, the gains might be less, but the moment you go into a dip, whatever gains those altcoins gave will just be taken back. And then in the end, maybe Bitcoin not moving as much to the upside, but holding on to those gains that it made might outperform altcoins pumping hundreds of percent, but then losing all those gains. And we can see over years, that's what's come to be the case, because if Bitcoin's up at 95k, a new all-time high, then why is Quant not at 400 plus? And if you remember my videos from many years ago in 2022, once we were given that bottom in June, I was saying Quant could potentially get to 1k, 2k, and say people were saying I was being way too conservative. There were other YouTubers saying 5 to 10k per Quant token. Look at how many years have passed and look at where it is, and then compare it to Bitcoin. So long term, the idea of where the money should be going should be clearer. If not, should be clear enough already. But I will continue to make these updates as of when there's something to say. This level, after meeting the targets of mine, has been recovered. This will start a further move up into the 200 EMA, $85. A further break of 85 is a good step in the right direction, because we're seeing a trend change on the short term. So you can see the utmost highest wicks lines up with the 100 and 200 EMA. By breaking that, this would suggest you've broken the downtrending trend line and the moving averages. So those signals would suggest it's bullish, but I would not personally be macro bullish. Micro bullish, yes, I can now expect a further move up into the two next resistances, which would be 110, 112, and then 140, 150. So the break of this level would initiate a move that could sustain all the way up to 150, or could get stopped at before breaking 112. Just dissect all of these. Don't assume that from here we're just going up like that. That is what's hurt me over the years. That is why I'm never going to be like that anymore and try to call a bottom, because that's what I was doing back over here, thinking it was a bottom, seeing the moving averages recovered, but that final 886 level was never recovered, and so no reason to be bullish. Moving average recovered, that would tell me I'm bullish. There would be a trend line here that's broken, suggesting it is now bullish, but it makes new lower lows. Once again here, it makes new lower lows after hitting the 886, but look, draw a trend line through here. You see the moving average is broken, you see bullish cross. Why is it not sustaining? It's because of that level right there. One day that level will break, but again, once again, didn't break new lower lows. One day that level will break the 886. And when it does, you have new expectations. Is Bitcoin above that level? No. So I don't have any expectations of a bullish move that will sustain long term. Doesn't mean if we break this, a move up can't happen. That's a bullish move, but it's not a long-term bullish move. It's a micro move. Then that's where there's no more expectations. It stops. So there's a move in between this level and this level. Can stop as early as there, but that would be the target because it's the last high. I'm trying to shift the trend. I'm trying to break that last high to shift the trend. So on the break of that, so we initiate the further move up towards the final layer of defense for myself. On the break of the 152 level, these become my expectations, not before. I understand how annoying this is, because if we're waiting for 152 to be the trigger, even to the 230 level, that's not even a double. But we're looking for the optimal conditions where we do not get messed about, where we don't buy and get wrecked. That is definitely can still be the case here. That's what has continued to be the case over the past few months. Yes, as it's the final 886, you need to reverse. It needs to be the bottom to avoid this. So take that risk, take that gamble if you choose to. If you're someone that's trying to attain as many Quant tokens as possible, you need to take the risk that that is the bottom and we will sustain past 152, confirming its support, targeting 230 to 500, a new all-time high. You need to take that risk. But if you're just someone looking for the optimal trading conditions, where it's less likely to get manipulated, less likely that I buy and then we go to new lows, then I buy again and then we go into new lows. If you don't want that to be the case, less likely for that to happen, because the trend would be micro and macro bullish, wait for support, for this to be flipped into support. Until then, if you're someone that can't miss the bottom, you can't miss out on any gains, you have to get all the gains possible, you have to get as many tokens as possible. If you have that mentality, you got to take the risk that it will break. Understand, with those previous Bitcoin examples, it can still do something like this. That is it from me today. I'll update as we approach the 200 EMA next, but just be aware, failure to break this, we're looking for the loss of the 886. Break this and then you've got a trigger for a move up. Do not assume it's going to go up like that. Dissect it. If you were to be a trader, dissect it. In, out. Wait for pullback, breakthrough, in, out, because of course that can still happen from there. If you want education, if you got any questions you want answered, if you want one-to-one mentorship or an ebook course or a community, check out the links in the description. Otherwise, like, subscribe, comment and share. Also check out the Twitter.